Every night, the saloon seemed to spin around her. Between laughter and clinking glasses, she stepped onto the stage. The dress cut through the air, the hem twirled, and her boots kept time on the boards. One note was enough to hush conversations and turn heads. No one knew her legal name. To the door in the bar, she was just the saloon lady. From early on, Sadie Earp saw magic as an invitation. Instead of accepting the rules laid out for her, she followed the impulse to live for adventure and laughter. In a traveling troupe, she found her own act, crossing town squares and train stations. She turned down the roles of teaching, serving, or washing. She preferred the stage lights and an open map, choosing the road as both job and home. On February 18, 1878, John Tunstall was caught on his own ranch by gunmen tied to Sheriff William Brady of Lincoln County. A rancher and merchant, he had gathered a few young men, Billy among them, to watch the cattle and hunt turkeys. The sheriff's posse surrounded the place and opened fire, dropping Tunstall and his horse, killed right there. In 1880, David F. Barry captured a portrait of Lakota Rain in the Face posing with the Winchester 73 he wielded in fights against U.S. troops. A Hunkpapa chief, he joined Oglala, Cheyenne, and Arapaho under Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse. 4 years earlier, he had taken part in the native victory at Little Bighorn. The image distills a chapter of indigenous resistance. John Wesley Hardin, a feared figure of the Old West, claimed to have taken 42 lives. According to him, the count began at age 15. He said the first shot was in self-defense against a formerly enslaved man chasing him with a club. But another version circulates. The victim was unarmed, and the shot came more from prejudice than danger. On November 4, 1881, Texas attorney Will McLaury arrived in Tombstone, Arizona, carrying the grief of a wife and 2 brothers lost that year. There, he joined the murder prosecution against the Earp brothers and Doc Holliday. Tom and Frank McLaury, along with Billy Clanton, fell in the shootout at the OK Corral, and Will set out to pursue justice and punishment. In a biting November, Doc Holliday, famed gunman and gambler, ended his life in a plain hotel room in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. He had moved there seeking relief from the tuberculosis that had dogged him since early on. Pneumonia made things worse. Between duels, bars, and card tables, the bill came due, and the end didn't take long. On the frontier, women remade their lives. They left the familiar, left loved ones behind, and dealt with the unexpected. Without the support of many husbands, gone or dead, they took the lead. House, fields, kids. They bargained, called on neighbors, built networks. That's how they kept the community standing and pushed the future forward. On an old boudoir card, a scene appears. An anonymous photographer catches soldiers of the 10th Mechanized Cavalry of the Brazilian Army alongside indigenous guides during an operation through the Backlands. Decades later, the photo resurfaced at an auction and, crossing memory and military power, fetched a bid of $20,000 and reignited questions about borders and alliances. By the creek that runs through Las Vegas, a couple poses with their dog. It's the early 20th century, around 1904, 1905. The village is still dust, almost no streets, almost no lights. The water moves forward, the shutter clicks, and the scene captures the quiet moment when the sketch of a city starts to take shape. There, between silence and expectation, the future hints at itself. To keep their people free and safe, the Nez Perce faced the U.S. Army's advance for 4 months, which aimed to confine them in Idaho. The retreat didn't work. In the mountains of Montana, near the Canadian border, the columns under Howard and Miles closed the net. With no way out, Chief Joseph chose to surrender with most of the warriors. Jacob and Samuel Hawken became known for the muzzle-loading rifles used in hunting and the fur trade in the expanding West. In 1815, they opened a workshop in St. Louis, Missouri, where they combined metallurgy and design. From there came a model that stood out for its finish, accuracy, and range, becoming a go-to choice for hunters and scouts. An icon of the Old West, James Butler Wild Bill Hickok crossed lines of work. He was a soldier, sheriff, gunman, gambler, and also a performer. Between saloons, card tables, and clouds of dust, he faced duels that newspapers turned into spectacle. His life ran the edge between order and chaos, honor, and violence, and from that sprang the legend that still echoes. Ramona Chihuahua Daklugi wears a suede wedding outfit and Apache fabric. In her calm posture, she shows pride and mastery of the craft. Here, clothing and memory meet. The dress speaks of roots and authorship. That gesture opened the way for Yves Ball to talk with Ramona's husband. Until then, closed off about his story and the people he belonged to. Known as Wild Bill, James Butler Hickok was a sheriff, Old West adventurer, and Civil War veteran. His sister Lydia kept an undated portrait for years, probably from the early 1870s, shortly before he was shot down at a poker table. Between roads and saloons, his legend grew. The tired look in the picture seems to foreshadow the end. Frederick Douglass broke through with the autobiography that exposed his life under slavery and with speeches that confronted it without compromise. The impact brought new roles. In 1877, Rutherford B. Hayes named him the first black man to head the office of U.S. Marshal, tasked with protecting courts, enforcing the law, and running the jails in the District of Columbia. In 1884, Phoebe, daughter of U.S. Marshal John Ed Cousins, became his assistant in the Eastern District of Missouri. At her father's side, she helped keep order and learned the weight of the post. In 1887, John's sudden death, still on duty, broke up the pair and forced Phoebe to redefine her steps. From then on, she set out in a new direction. Feared for the distance it could reach and the steadiness of its shots, the Sharps Model 1874 became standard among buffalo hunters and target shooters. The design was born in 1871 but got the 1874 name when the Sharps Rifle Company changed leadership. The renaming marked technical improvements and cemented the rifle's reputation, which fixed itself in history. John X. Beidler became a well-known figure among Montana pioneers. In the 1860s, he fought the gang tied to Sheriff Henry Plummer in the territory's vigilante movement. In 1870, he entered federal service, worked as an armed messenger for Wells Fargo, and later as a deputy U.S. Marshal. He kept order and hunted criminals until 1889, when his health made him stop. After the Civil War, the West shifted from loose powder to metallic cartridges, faster and safer. In that in-between, he walked around with a Springfield Allen .5070, an old percussion gun converted, and two 1851 Navy Colts, still cap and ball, spitting lead balls. His figure captured the passage from one world to another. On January 11, 1886, on the ridge called Devil's Backbone, two U.S. detachments clashed. Captain Emmett Crawford's group sought to protect the Apaches, while Major Corridors aimed to remove them. The fight was tough and left dead behind. As night fell, the episode had already fixed itself in the memory of the border between the United States and Mexico. In the photo, second from the right is Molly Burkhart. As she posed, she couldn't imagine the dark plot closing in on her family. Rita Smith, far left, killed in an explosion. Anna Brown, next to her, executed with a gunshot. And Minnie Smith, far right, taken by an illness doctors described as mysterious and debilitating. In 1914, the family of Cloyd H. Smith founded in Sioux City, Iowa, the American popcorn company, Future Jolly Time. The business started in the home basement and, in the first year, reached 75,000 pounds of popcorn. What began as a small craft turned into a national habit. More than 3 billion pounds sold, linking a home kitchen to the country's shelves. Between dust and rails, they turned the tables in the Old West. Some stepped to the edge of the law, others led expeditions, worked as agents, and took over the stage. Calamity Jane, Annie Oakley, and Belle Starr became legends. By facing prejudice, they showed that courage and a quick trigger don't belong to just one gender. In the Old West, amid smoke and rough music, saloon women walked a tightrope, sell their bodies, or danced to stay alive. Pushed to the margins, they suffered violence from customers and bosses. Some ran off with outlaws, rarely finding shelter. Others made dance their voice and way out, but ran up against prejudice and the fight for space.
In 1876, at the height of cattle ranching in the Old West, Bat Masterson and Wyatt Earp posed side by side in Dodge City, Kansas. The photograph captured more than faces. It recorded an alliance that would echo beyond the frontier, marking the work of these lawmen in building the American narrative. In the 1865 photo, Wild Bill Hickok appears in his usual outfit, far from the poses and theatrical costumes of other images. The shot catches the man behind the myth. Simple choices, a sharp cut, details that suggest taste and habit. A rare portrait of style and personality without artifice. Before we go on, go ahead and click subscribe and turn on the bell. This way, each new chapter gets to you right on time and nothing in this journey slips by. In Alaska, from the late 19th to the early 20th century, Kate Rockwell lit up the stage. She sang and danced the popular repertoire, drawing loyal crowds. Her intense presence and the famous red chiffon became her trademark, ensuring memorable performances and a central place in the local entertainment scene. At the funeral of Tom and Frank McClory and Billy Clanton, the procession displayed a sign, taken from life on the streets of Tombstone. The phrase, hard and direct, became the motto of mourning. They fell in the duel that fixed their names in history. The gunfight in the alley behind the OK Corral in 1881, an emblem of an Old West in turmoil. Bill Doolin, a feared outlaw of the Oklahoma Territory, became a coveted target because of the high reward for his capture. The hunt ended in August 1896. In a final showdown, he was gunned down. About 20 shots hit Doolin, all fired by Heck Thomas, then a U.S. deputy marshal. In the early 19th century, across the expanse of Texas, a force took shape that would mark history: the Texas Rangers. The idea arose in 1823 under Stephen Austin and gained an official structure in 1835. Since then, they have tracked fugitives and defended the frontiers, becoming a symbol of the territory. Olive Oatman became known for a path of survival and adaptation. Captured by the Mojave, she lived among them and received on her chin a tattoo made with blue cactus ink. The design, part of a traditional rite, marked belonging and, according to belief, guaranteed rest after death. Before establishing himself as a cattleman, Texas John Slaughter followed a striking path as a Texas Ranger during the turbulent years of the Civil War. Later, he set up his last ranch near Douglas, Arizona. A photo, dated around 1885, condenses this figure's life and deeds into a single image. Known as the Rose of Cimarron, Rose Dunn entered the Old West imagination at 15. In 1895, in Ingalls, in the Oklahoma Territory, she is said to have helped her boyfriend, an outlaw, during a shootout with lawmen. The episode propelled her and fixed her name in frontier stories. Since then, her image has become legend. Pearl Hart entered the Old West imagination by carrying out, in 1899, one of the last stagecoach robberies. The feat took her to the newspapers and later to the pages of Cosmopolitan. From there, her fame grew. From a provincial outlaw, she became a lasting symbol of an era at the end of the line. This photo, the last known of George Armstrong Custer, shows a man vain and fascinated by the camera. Throughout his life, he posed more than 150 times. The portrait was taken 60 days before the episode that would mark U.S. history, the Battle of Little Bighorn in 1876. From the pose to disaster, just one step. The photo shows a resident of Caldwell, Kansas, wearing typical cowboy attire. On the job, they adjusted their clothing to changes in weather and the terrain they faced. That's why they chose different styles of chaps, worn over pants, to protect their legs in the daily rural grind. Before we go on, go ahead and click subscribe and turn on the bell. This way, each new chapter gets to you right on time and nothing in this journey slips by. In the photo, two women pose in a richly decorated parlor inside an entertainment venue in Miles, Montana. The town, with around 1,000 inhabitants, drew attention for another reason. It became famous for the freedom of its customs and the weakness of the laws that were supposed to keep it in order. Quanah Parker, leader of the Comanche, was born from the Union of Worlds, son of Cynthia Ann Parker, a white woman captured and adopted by the tribe. He grew up among warriors, and when buffalo hunters pushed into the plains, he took the lead in resisting to defend his people's lands and way of life. On the left in the photo, Black Elk played a decisive role in two moments of American history. In 1876, he took part in the Battle of Little Bighorn, a clash between United States troops and the peoples of the Great Plains, with the Lakota Sioux prominent, the community he belonged to. In this image that has crossed decades, dated around 1880, a mystery remains. Who are these people? Clues lead scholars to point to the Standing Man as John Kinney, notorious in southern New Mexico. In 1875, he rose to prominence by leading a gang that left deep marks on the local history of crime. Kit Carson, a standout name in the Push West, followed trails that mixed risk and resolve. He worked as a fur trader, explorer, and mountain man. He became a sought-after guide and led expeditions alongside John Pathfinder Fremont, helping map routes that would change America's destiny. Jesse James, leader of the James Younger Gang, became a symbol of the Old West. Between getaways and ambushes, he led robberies that marked newspapers and towns. Fame grew alongside the tightening of the law. The plot ends bluntly. In 1882, betrayed at home, Jesse drops with a bullet before planning the next hit. More than a record. In 1884, a cabinet card fixed a scene at the San Carlos Reservation in Arizona. It shows the first documented photograph of Geronimo. The Apache leader, already respected among his own, would cross borders and become a recognized cultural icon. The image circulated and helped shape his public memory. At the start of the 20th century, Joella Irwin entered the arena when few women were seen in rodeo. She competed in different equestrian events, faced rules and looks that wanted her out, and opened a path. From event to event, she became a reference and showed there was room for women in that circuit. Before we go on, go ahead and click subscribe and turn on the bell. This way, each new chapter gets to you right on time and nothing in this journey slips by. At the height of the Old West, cowboys were essential in handling cattle, and between long days sought out photo studios to capture their image. With hat, boots, and the dust of work, they prepared before the lens, leaving portraits that tell, without frills, what it was like to live and survive in that borderland. Tiburcio Vasquez emerged as one of the best-remembered Hispanic outlaws of the Old West. The image, dated around 1865, fixes his face in time. For nearly 20 years, he led robberies and getaways that spread fame and controversy, forever marking the history of that setting. A newly found photo offers a rare slice of the Old West. A woman at the head of a farm appears driving cattle across unidentified land. The unexpected find was by Mark Lee Gardner, who came across the image in an antique shop in Missouri, opening a new trail to forgotten stories. Noon in Greenwood County, Kansas. A wagon train of pioneers slows the march and sets up a brief rest. Beside the wagon, carrying supplies and hope, they share food and agree on the next steps. The trail calls, but lunch seals their strength to keep going in the search for new land, heading west. When the daguerreotype gave way to the ambrotype, cheaper and more widespread in the 1850s, the way of preserving faces changed too. In this portrait, the man remains anonymous, but his steady gaze and austere composition pull us into the Old West setting, where every feature suggests a story yet to be told. In the 1870s, in Death Valley, borax extraction scaled up. Reinforced wagons crossed the Great Basin Desert, each one guided by teams of 20 mules. The grueling logistics shortened distances, ensured the minerals' transport, and marked a feat of engineering and human endurance on the western frontier. 19th century photography records a slice of American frontiers. Sex workers in their rooms, facing the lens and taking charge of the scene. A striking record comes from Alaska in the 1890s, where they pose and guide the viewer's eye. The image, beyond its commercial appeal, points to the locale's everyday life. We've reached the end of our video. Subscribe to our channel and leave a comment if you like the content. See you next time.